Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Single Player Let's Play series. So you might wonder why I'm underneath our farm currently, and that's because I noticed that all of our phytogenic insulators were backed up, and that's not the behavior that I expect from the way that my system works. And you can see the glass spines are all filled up and everything. So this was really weird to me, and so I went to check and noticed that our dimensional chest was completely full. I don't know why, I don't know how. This is very satisfying to look at though. But I'm confused. So why don't we go investigate this together, and then we'll get into what I have planned for this episode, which is to go ahead and get some of the ether gas harvested up. That way we can have that on tap whenever we need it. If I look at my grid, I do have access, so I'm wondering if this is just like a weird glitch with my network. I'm not too sure. Not too sure at all. So the import is over here. Are my drives full? Did I do something wrong? My drives are full. That's why. Okay, well, what's interesting about this is that they shouldn't be. Let's see. What is it that we're struggling to hold on to? Oh. Okay. So come with me while I show you my relatively simplistic debugging process. I think I've done this with you once before. But we're just going to disconnect this entirely. We're also going to make sure that that magnet is turned on. And so now that everything is disconnected, I'm going to sort by quantity. Okay, so that's the issue, is we have actually overfilled a handful of our resources already, and that is scary. You may also notice this guy right here. This is great. This is exciting. So we have had a couple of setups that have produced XP that has been, and I'll show you more about this later, but we've been using modular routers to turn that into experience bottles. Okay, so it looks like we have a lot of places where we need void upgrades. So let's try to get some of those put together, and we'll kind of move from there. So redstone and lapis are the two biggest offenders for this. So we'll go ahead and grab lapis by the block, I suppose would work best. And mind you, this is essentially just going to be voiding everything out, and that's okay. I also wish that you wouldn't import, but not really being given a lot of option here. So what we might want to do, I think I have a better idea. Rather than going through and doing everything manually, picking everything out manually, why don't we put void upgrades where we notice we have resources kind of a little bit overflowing, and then once we do that, we'll move from there, I suppose, right? So we have 8,000 iron blocks. I think that's okay for now. And we can come back to these and make upgrades later. But for now, I think that's okay. Copper. We are full up on copper. That's exciting. Okay, so let's go ahead and get some storage upgrades for a couple of these. Let's do gold tier. And I'll be back when I've got all this kind of figured out and taken care of, I guess. Okay, so hopefully you can see, as indicated by this wall of largely upgraded drawers, we have gold upgrades in all of these. You can see we have a ton of resources, more than I really currently know what to do with even. And so we're doing a really great job of maintaining our, ability to store 73,000 of any particular material. I'm not particularly sure why it is that this is only able to store 8,000. That seems, 73,000 of the raw material. Interesting. The math here is weird. If it doesn't have a nugget, it looks like it can store less. So I don't know. It's very strange. It's very strange. Nonetheless, you can see here that we have a lot of this stuff kind of set up in a way that we can now support an insane amount of materials, honestly. And really quickly, I did notice that the configurator had not been applied to these guys to hide their amounts. So we're going to do that really quickly. Anything else I'm missing? That. We're missing that, and we're missing out on these down here. We'll fix that really quickly. And there we go. So now we have this mess, right, where some of our stuff is in our inventory, some of it isn't. And so we're going to clean this up using a disk manipulator. If you don't know what a disk manipulator is, that is totally fine. These guys are really cool, though. So a storage housing is pretty easy to make. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the disk manipulator to go through and essentially, what's the wording I'm looking for here? Purge our system of old items and like old misconfigured items. So the biggest key here is anything that isn't where it's supposed to be after going through the disk manipulator will be where it's supposed to be. Also, I want to say that the Forge client config for the light pipeline is supposed to fix these, but I'm noticing that they aren't fixed. I wonder if they just need light or something else. I feel like these are a little dark. Might just be me. Anyways, so there should be everything we need to make this guy. And so that will get us one disk manipulator. The disk manipulator allows us to put our disks in and have them dump all of their content out right back into our network again. This is really cool in theory. In practice, it can cause problems if you're not prepared for the consequences. But I think we'll be okay. And by consequences, I largely mean just like there is a chance that if you're not expecting something to go somewhere, if you don't want it to go into an unfiltered inventory, for example, you might run into issues. But we were pretty good about keeping everything where it needs to be. So I'm not too terribly concerned about that. And I do want to hook up our cabling back up now that everything is good to go. We can figure out whatever is missing later, but we know the biggest issues right now were those guys over there. So what we'll do, come on, we'll grab some speed upgrades. I'll give you these back just in case you had anything that you needed. And we'll get a stack upgrade. And while we wait, beep-a-deep-bee. The fortune upgrade would have been really cool to have use for. I wish that we had figured something out for that. And maybe we will someday. We'll see. What are we waiting on? Lots of bone meal. Might end up canceling all once this is done. Okay, cool. So let's put the stack and speed upgrade in there. And you'll see now we have quite a bit of storage here in this 16K. So if I take my stuff here, you'll see that the numbers here will start to drop and they are going to start going back in through here. So you'll notice that this drive is going to start to fill up, except in the case where we may find ourselves with items that were supposed to go into a drawer that didn't the first time around. So where we had all that backfill, this will go through and put things where they belong. It's essentially just doing the importing part. Like if you think of an importer, imagine that it's importing from this disk itself. So this is going to allow us to put things right back where they would be as if they were imported, which means that anything that was supposed to go into this drawer but ended up in the disk will go back into a drawer. And this is going to help us clean up a lot. You can see it's pretty slow, even with the stack and speed upgrades. It is pretty slow, but that's just how it is. You know, it's going through 16,000 items times 3. I don't really blame it. So I'm going to wait for it to finish up because there's a lot going on. And then when I am wrapped up here, I will come back. Right, so everything has been essentially defragmented, but I noticed that we're still using 16Ks, and while that is perfectly substantial, and I don't see any major issue with that, it might be worthwhile, and I'm going to put this somewhere kind of more administrative, like maybe over here. It could be worthwhile to look into getting a slightly better drive, and in fact, there are a lot of better drives. So let's look at our refined disk, or let's just look at the storage parts, I guess. What do we have? What do we have? We've got 16K, 64K fluid. Interesting. Okay, so we probably could do ourselves the service of getting a slightly better set of drives put together, set of disks put together. So let's look at this guy. We've got 64K. See, I don't think we have 16K, but I don't think we have 64K. I don't think we have anything above that. So let's go ahead and put 16K in, or 64K in, which is just 3 16Ks. And then if we look at the next tier, it's actually not from Refined Storage. It's from another mod called Reborn Storage. So if we look at Reborn Storage, there are now 256K drives, which are even bigger. And then from there, there is the 512K, or sorry, 1024. That makes sense, I guess. So let's try those for now. I think that should be plenty. Yeah, you can see I saved room. And so now, if I take this and shift right click it, we can get the storage part out of there. And let's try for a 128K, or sorry, 256K. So what is that going to require? It's honestly not that bad. Okay, cool. So I'm going to wait for that to craft because that is going to most certainly take quite a while. All right, that took a little while. I did forget to upgrade these machines with the flux linkage amplifier, so I went ahead and did that as well while I was waiting. But we have our 256K storage part, and we should be able to enclose it in a disk or in our existing housing, maybe. I don't, okay, that doesn't work. Oh well, that's not that big of a deal. And that is a 256K storage disk. That's a pretty big deal, mostly because that is a lot of storage. 256,000 items in the palm of my hand is bananas, honestly. So that's pretty cool. And then what we can do is if I hop up here, we'll toss these out, toss that in, and then we will go ahead and use our disk manipulator to transition our items over. You can see we're already pretty full on those three anyway. And that's going to be a great deal of help because then we can use those three to make a 64K, which will get us a free 16K storage in the end. But yeah, we're not going to fill this up anytime soon. Very, very happy about that. So while that does its thing, I wanted to discuss today's main plans, which were to look into ether gas. And so ether gas is produced by, if you didn't already guess it, a fluid laser base and a laser fluid drill, or a laser drill, rather. So let's head over to the factory really quickly and see about how that's going to work. Oh, right, I cannot forget. I've been meaning to show you this. I mentioned this earlier in this episode, but the enchanted bottles, the bottles of enchanting. So that is handled over here. You may have noticed that I picked up items, and that's okay. But there are bottles of enchanting. We have 6,000 of them. And the way that this works is right here, we have a disguise using a camouflage upgrade. We have a disguised modular router with a vacuum module. The vacuum module will pick up anywhere above it or around it, doesn't really matter. And if we put the vacuum augment on there, it will only pick up experience. And then when it does do the experience, we can say which kind. So do we want to do a fluid or do we want to do a bottle of enchanting? And because I was lazy, I did a fluid or did a bottle of enchanting. I should have probably done a fluid. I think that would have been a little cooler, but I didn't feel like dealing with another dynamic fluid importer. So I didn't. Do forgive me for that, I suppose. But now we have experience bottles on us basically constantly. We can, use these to get more levels if we need them. And if we ever fill up, there's a void card in there somewhere. It acts like there isn't, but there is. So yeah, and this entire setup here has been doing really well. So if we look at pink slime, I think we're still full, but there's also meat that we're almost full on. We're getting there. It takes a while, that's for sure. But anyways, I wanted to do ether gas. That is what our third station here is for. And so to do ether gas, we are going to need another, at least I would like another compact machine. So let's look at making maybe a large one this time. I think that would be pretty fun. I don't know how much crying obsidian we have. I think I got a good bit. Yeah, I got some from an asteroid or a meteor, rather, at some point. So that was pretty straightforward. Vacuum pumps are automated, so that's not a problem. And the machine walls, that's what, 6, so 6, 12, and then so 20, right? 20. So we'll do that. Oh, and that experience setup that I just showed you with the cows, I've done the exact same thing for the ores back here as well. You can see there's now this guy doing the exact same thing. Did forget to mention that. Pretty important. So we'll go ahead and set this up like so. And let me grab those vacuum pumps. Those are pretty quick to make. And this is going to be a pretty big chamber, and there's a reason for that. And we're going to grab our laser drill for fluids. This is going to be important. And we're also going to want laser drills just in general. So we'll go ahead and get that stuff ready soon as well. Let's just get those walls. You can see that the automatic smithing crafting is working out just fine. So there's that. I've been griefed. And there we go. That is a large compact machine. And so we're going to use that for our setup here soon. We're going to also need a stasis chamber, which is pretty important. Unfortunately, we have tons of pink slime, so it'll be a particular issue to get a hold of. Shouldn't be too terribly difficult, at least, by my plans, by my calculations, I should say. So yeah, let's go and get the fluid laser base going. So to get that, and keep in mind, some of our items are still being transformed into, or transitioned back into our grid network. Let's grab some diamond gears. How many are we going to need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think. So we'll go for 8. That sounds right. And so now let's see, we're going to need a handful of these guys. So let's go ahead and get a good bit of nether brick. Let's go ahead and get, let's see, what else do we need for this? Oh, you guys already know this. I don't even know I'm holding you hostage here watching this. You'll get it. You know what I'm doing. All right, so we should be able to make ourselves a fluid laser base. 4 of these guys, hopefully. Yeah, that figures. Pistons are pretty easy to craft, though, so we'll do that. That's 4 laser drills and 1 stasis chamber. So the stasis chamber is a very important component to this. So with the laser base, we're also going to need a purple lens, this guy. So the purple laser lens is just going to be a plain laser lens with purple dye. So we can just grab like any glass pane if we wanted to do it that way in the latex dissolution chamber. And that gets us our purple laser lens. And so what we're going to do is, you remember how there was a slot here that I told you previously we weren't going to use? This time, we're going to use it. And we're going to use our stasis chamber too, and we're going to use this guy. We're also going to need a flux provider. They have been renamed in this update, and I much prefer the provider and consumer terminology over plug and point, because it beats me what was supposed to be what. So I think this is a little better. We're also going to need a dimensional tank or 2, probably 2, you guys know me. And then, what else am I going to need? Pipe. We're always going to need pipe, basically constantly. And that should be okay. I've given ourselves basically as much room as I think we could possibly ask for. So let us go ahead and put this guy down right here. With a sign, of course. I like the canvas signs. Let's see if I can afford one still. Heck yeah, I love these. They look so good. And we're going to call this ether gas farming. And I'm going to grab, there is a Unicode character that you can use for the down arrow. And I'm just going to use that. That way we know which one I'm talking about. Let's see, we requested dimensional tanks. Those are ready. Let's go ahead and grab ourselves a personal shrinking device and head on inside of this giant, or large size is the name of it. Yeah, this is pretty big. This is a pretty big compact machine. So let's go ahead and get this set up, right? So we have a stasis chamber. That's going to need to go somewhere. And really quickly, I'm actually, for the sake of my own sanity, I'm going to grab another flux consumer or provider. Sorry. And that will allow us to keep things pretty simple. rather than having to run pipe everywhere, because that's not fun. And let me think, what else could we use? Don't really think that there's much else. So we'll take that. And now what we'll do is we will set up our provider right here in the smack dab center of this 9x9 structure. And we will put our stasis chamber atop of it. And the way that this works, if you look at the working area, it doesn't show. But if I stand right here, you notice that I got extreme slowness, and it constantly gives me the extreme slowness effect. And it's pretty efficient. It's about 1,000 every, it's about, what, 500 FE a tick is my guess? Well, 500 FE every, okay, so yeah, that's not bad. That's 25. Yeah, okay, 25 FE a tick. Sorry, I had to do the math. So if it takes 2 seconds to use 1,000 FE, it's 25 FE a tick. That's not bad. Okay, and then we have the fluid laser base. I also forgot another very critical thing here, but that's okay. That we're going to put somewhere. It doesn't really matter where. I also don't really have a lot of building blocks, so we're just going to have to deal with energy pipes as building blocks for now. And from my experience, give yourself some space here. I would not suggest cramming yourself into a tight space if you can avoid it. That's just from personal experience. And what we'll do is we'll just hook up a couple of different pointers going off in different directions. We'll replace this right here and go up. That way we can put our tank here. You'll see why shortly. And our provider here hooked up to our main network. And if I run these over, I don't know that they really need to be that far, but we'll see. I don't know why you think you need power either. Oh, and you know what? It didn't need to be that low. Let me get a couple of blocks. I think I'm going to need them. Do I have any scaffolding? Hey, I do. Nice. Scaffolding would have been perfect for this. I don't know why I forgot about that. Forgot how big this room could be. And we're going to set our spawn point over here, by the way. It's a little bit compact. Pun. Completely not even a pun, really. It literally is compact. There we go. That's way easier to clean this up and spread this out a little bit. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put our laser drills. Whoops. That's not it. Well, this is going horribly. You, break. That'll have to do, I guess. And we'll do right there. And that should hopefully find, yep, our target has been found. And you know what? I'm just going to do it from down here and rotate them using supplementaries. I think that's just going to be easier. And yes, we could have more of these if we wanted to. I don't really care. I don't think it's that big of a deal personally. So I'm probably just going to stick with these for the time being. And then we can do that. We can then do this. And that. Then we'll go that way and that way. Much easier to do it this way. And that one's already facing the right way. Heck yes. So we'll go and clear those out. And that is going to be the component of this that's going to handle harvesting fluids from our wither. We're also going to need to go configure that tank really quickly. Let's do that. So we will set this to private, and I don't even remember what our last one was, so we'll just do frequency 10. Oh, that's being used for water. 11. Okay, that works. And what we'll do is we'll go build ourselves a wither. So withers are pretty cool, because, you know, they're the standard wither. They're, you know, nothing special. But that stasis chamber is the actual secret. So let's grab some soul sand. And let's build ourselves a wither. Now, I've built this here because if my energy ever runs out, I would rather lose a few machines than my entire base while I'm offline, especially because this is on a server. While it's just one person on the server and no one else can join, etc., etc., I would still rather not have to reload a backup. I'd rather just say, hey, you know what? This stuff is gone. My bad. No big deal. We're at a point in this series, right? We have a ton of stuff. We're constantly generating stuff. So I would just rather not. But you're going to notice something really peculiar when this wither sits here. You notice the health, that there's no boss bar, and that the health is just stuck at a really low level and it's barely moving. That's how you know it's working. The last thing here is we need our purple laser lens. And of course we need this to finish up as well. And you can see it's barely gone up in health. And don't take that to mean that there's a like a countdown timer or anything. That's not it at all. When it hits 300 health, it just sits there. But it's just sort of my way of showing you, hey, look, this is what's happening. So you can see here we're getting our ether gas. It looks like we're getting, a good bit. We've already got 20. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say output, you should push out to the top. And that means that our tank on channel 11 will help us out here. I'm going to grab a chunk loader real quick. I think I have a single chunk loader, which would be perfect. That way we're constantly generating different materials in this area. And if I look at the chunk map here, yeah, this is all one chunk, so we just need the one chunk loader. And why not? You can also chunk load just in case server reload stuff happens. So there we go. We're producing ether gas pretty slowly. This is not very fast, but it doesn't have to be because this is not something we're really going to use all too often. At least not by my plans. I could be wrong, I suppose, but I don't. Ether gas is not something that is used very commonly, just in general, and especially not in this pack. So we'll see. Shoot, I was hoping to be lazy. Just wanted to clean this up a tiny bit. But yeah, you can see that the wither is just completely trapped and forced to become completely docile. And yeah, again, more laser drills would make this work faster. And there's also faster laser drills, I believe, that we can do as well. I have to remember the upgrades. We'll have to figure that out. So give me just a few, and we'll get this kind of somewhat upgraded. All right, so with everything fully upgraded, you can see this is pretty fast. It goes from needing 20 to needing 16. And there's nothing else that we can do really from here. But this is really fast. I'm pretty happy with that. So now we've just got to do the usual setup. Tree chopping off is fine. Where we import there, because you know how that goes. I'm also going to really quickly throw this out and make a new one because this wrench has been very helpful. But I think it is time to go and get upgraded, or rather replaced, I should say. Because it is very old and has been doing a lot of work for us as we rotate various blocks. I've honestly found that to be the most useful wrench. It's kind of ironic. Just because of how many other wrenches there are, I find that relatively ironic. So let's head on over here and get everything wrapped up with the storage, and then we should have ether gas on tap. So you are done. Let's really quickly just ask you to make a 64K using those. That should really not take long at all. And then we just have to add to this setup here. I don't know what channel 7 was for. I would be curious to see. Meat? Yeah, that makes sense. I should really label these somehow, and I wish that there was a good way to do that, but there's not really. So for now, we're just going to deal with it as is, but it's definitely kind of frustrating that I don't have a good way of saying, like, hey, that's what this is for. So we'll see what I can do about that in the coming days and episodes. There we go. That's all cleaned up now. We are going to want behind the setup here just a little bit. Probably going to put our detector here. And we're also going to want an importer. And we'll go and do this. Get that detector right there. And we're just going to go ahead and clone the rest of the functionality. So less than 512. And for fluids. And we're going to go ether gas. Right there. And what we can do is we can grab you and put you there. Should also have a cover that we can make hollow. And let's go ahead and grab that importer. So now if I put you down here, private 11 change, there's our ether gas. 750 millibuckets is not bad at all. And we will put you right here to start importing all those fluids as soon as I change you and cover you. Oh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. And we want you to import fluids. There we go. That's all we needed. And we should now be able to clean up our mess. Still looking pretty good. And now if we go to the fluid view, we have ether gas on tap. We have almost a bucket's worth. And I'm going to wait for that whole bucket because I want the quest reward. I want the quest to be marked done because we worked really hard on this today. So all we need is that ether gas bucket, the whole bucket, and then I'll set up a fluid exporter. We can go ahead and get that going, I guess. We'll get an exporter to export ether gas into our final dissolution chamber over here at the lab. So that's what this last one over here has been for the whole time, was just so that we could export fluids into it. Let's go ahead and wait for that one bucket of ether gas and get that quest reward. And then we will tell you to export fluids, ether gas, and then you should be full of ether gas. There we go. Fireworks were not intentional, but they were appreciated. And ether gas is a big deal, right? So ether gas can be used for a bunch. I've seen a lot of you guys in the comments asking, what is ether gas for? What are these fluids for? I'm really excited to see what you use a fluid for. So I'm going to try to preface that with, here's what we can use the fluid for. We can finally upgrade our armor. It takes 2 buckets of ether gas for every single one of these, and that does take a lot, but we can make ourselves mecha suit armor, and that is going to allow us to use a lot of high tech to create ourselves some pretty great gear. But the biggest thing of all is the Supreme Machine Frame, because that is going to get us to space. That's going to get us a rocket launch pad that we're going to need. It's going to get us our oxygen loader that we're also going to need to go to space. And most importantly, that's going to get us the NASA workbench, which is a big must-have. So as you can probably imagine, it's kind of a barrier to entry for a lot of things, and it's very important that we have. So I'm very glad to get this started, but I think I'm going to need to spend some time cleaning up around here, getting some stuff set up anyways, and we need to start accumulating more ether gas on top of that. So I'm going to let this go. I'm going to call this an episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you very soon in the next one, and hopefully in the next one we can get ourselves some more very cool gear courtesy of Industrial Foregoing and also going to space with Beyond Earth. I'll see you soon. Take care.